Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Som TV podcast. My name is Jason Wise. Thank you for joining us. On today's pod, our very own Claire Copey and I are going to do a wine news roulette. You know, there are three stories in the wine world right now that have been published that we have to talk about. They're so bonkers and so ridiculous that we're going to break those down. And then afterwards, Claire is going to ask me a few questions about Cup of Salvation. As you guys know, Cup of Salvation is now about to enter theaters. It is finally going to be born after a long time. The fourth film in the Som series. There are tickets available right now for Los Angeles, Napa, and also Chicago. And if you go to somfilms.com, you can get tickets right now, and they are selling very fast. Some of the shows are already sold out. Most of them have wine, and almost all of them have Q&As, and I will be at all of them very tired. Go to somfilms.com and get tickets. We're going to be announcing several other venues very soon, so all of you waiting on New York City and other places, don't worry, we have you coming. Claire, it's good to have you back on. You're always on.
I'm always on. I'm always here, whether people like it or not.
Well, I messaged you, I texted you a few articles, and you texted me right back, we have to talk about these. And so very rarely is wine in the general news. You know, wine itself, there might be some scandal, somebody getting canceled, something like that, but it's not often like wine is the center stage of news. And what's great about all three of these articles is they're also kind of clickbait too. They're like clicky enough that the normal person might click on them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Do we want to just jump into?
Let's jump in. So the first article, Claire, what is the first story we would like to talk about in the wine world?
So this is, I'm going to read that clickbaity title. Portuguese town flooded by river of good quality red wine. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's hard to tell. So we need to look into it more. I don't know if this is just a fun festival they're having where the streets are just flowing with wine and you put a cup down to the street.
Portugal is not, that's not out of the question. Here's the thing. I love that about once every 3 to 6 years, there's always an article that a bunch of wine tanks in some small town explode and flood the street. And you see like pictures of like dogs that are covered in like red wine and they're all dyed red or something. It's always like the picture that they put. This is a really fascinating thing because on Twitter, you know, everyone's talking about it or whatever the hell Twitter's called now. And like social media, even Jancis Robinson was talking about this story. And for her, well, yeah, because it's always portrayed in the comments. Everyone's like, oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. Wine flowing through the streets. I don't think that's the case here. I think this is kind of a nightmare.
Well, what are you going to do? Like just like face down to the pavement and start chugging it? No, it's not that good of a thing.
Like you didn't go to college. You stop it, Claire.
That's true.
I will say whatever was in those if there's wine in a vat big enough to flood a street, I'm guessing this is not a single vineyard. This is not the best wine in the world. So I don't know what good quality means. Well, they said it was good quality
wine. I mean, in quotes, good quality. I'm sure it was. I mean, it's Portugal. They make good wine. The two vats were holding, 2.2 million liters of wine. It was two vats holding that much. So these are some big tanks holding a lot of red wine.
Is it safe to say that this is bulk wine we are talking about right here?
I would say it's probably something that, you know, is very drinkable value. Yeah, value wine. I don't want to say bulk. We don't want to put a label on it before it even got a chance to show itself, you know?
That's fair. Yes, we'll be fair to the wine. A lot of us who drink wine, a lot of the qualities we like about it, you know, the acid, tannins, all of the things in wine that are appealing and interesting to taste are an environmental disaster. And so when this came out, if anybody's been in any town in Portugal or Spain or Italy, there's generally a river nearby. And if this wine, this many liters of wine were to hit that river, I can tell you what would happen. Everything would be dead. It would kill everything.
It'd be a huge, and that is the case in this too. Like it says like it's an Olympic-sized swimming pool filled with wine, basically just coursing down the streets towards this river. They managed to avert it from the river, which is great because that would have been a huge environmental disaster. And then that's a whole other level of insanity that it gets to. I think it's funny that they say the spill lasted for an hour, but did not leave a strong smell behind because it was good quality wine, which just doesn't make any sense to me at all because it's wine. Wine is going to leave a smell, right? Like why? Yeah. Just because it's good? Even good wine like reeks if you spill it.
It's pretty warm in September in Portugal. And I will tell you, if it doesn't rain really quick, which is also a problem, this town is going to smell like, you know, Ohio State after a Buckeyes game. It's going to be really, really stinky.
Just Ohio State in general, probably.
Hey, you stop it. I'm from Ohio. All right.
Can you imagine the fruit flies?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. If you bartender serve, fruit flies are a pain in the ass. I bet they're really bad. I mean, I know we're just musing on this, but it's interesting. There's a twist to this story, though. And I should say this is central Portugal. So this is one of the largest wine regions in the entire country. It's huge. They produce a tremendous amount of wine here. So what's the twist on this?
Well, the twist was that this wine was used to store excess wine because, and we'll segue into something else here, a lot of Europe has too much wine, has an excess, has an embarrassment of wine, and it's starting to kind of cripple the wine industry out there. So this was excess wine that spilled into the streets.
This is, I love these articles that say there's too much wine being produced and not enough drinkers. And they always blame it on people's, they're changing their tastes, whatever. Do you think that this wine was a sabotage? I mean, if they had a bunch of extra wine, they're storing it in vats. Doesn't it seem interesting that
that's a loss, though? That's a as far as like from a financial standpoint, that's a big loss.
That's a write-off is what that is. I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, if you have a product, and why do people burn down perfectly good buildings? Insurance. I mean,
I didn't even think about the dark side of this.
I'm just saying it's interesting. They have all this wine they can't move. It explodes into the town in a very public fashion, affects a lot of people. I don't know. The head of the town, though, the next morning posted on Facebook, "We deeply regret the incident that occurred this morning. We want to express our sincere concern for the damage caused in general." I mean, that's a well-prepared statement. I think the excess wine thing here is the key to our next story. And the excess wine thing in Europe, oh boy, I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about this. So what is the next wine story that we have to talk about?
So France is going to spend 200 million euros on destroying excess wine as demand falls. That's a lot.
200 million euros to get rid of wine. 200
million euros.
A lot of this wine is in Bordeaux, right?
Yes. A lot of it is coming out of Bordeaux. There are other regions, but Bordeaux is the main focus, especially of this article.
There are scarce details. They're not naming houses. They're not naming... No. I doubt these are chateaus that are destroying wine, but they're not.
These are not classified growths that are getting, like...
You don't think it's not like a second growth, maybe? But it is a fascinating thing because it just goes to show, are people's tastes in what they drink actually changing? Is this really happening? Or is this, they made too much effing wine?
It might have, people's tastes are always changing, right? I mean, like, that's been happening for centuries. They're going to change. It's going to change in 10, 20 years. It's always going to be shifting. It's always going to be changing. They are making a lot of wine right now. But why is that? Where did that demand come from? Are they still responding to a boom decades ago and now things are tapering off?
I think people drank a lot more under lockdown and COVID than they do right now. And they may have drank a lot more prior to COVID, but I really think this is a holdover from demand that was happening. Plus, yields that are better. But the amount of $10, $12 wines that are made in this world and $6 wines, it so far dwarfs the amount of wine that the people listening to this podcast are drinking. And I don't mean the amount of wine in volume. I mean what wines they're drinking. So like most of the wines we all drink, this is not what we're talking about. I'm not saying that it's, we don't drink some cheaper wines, but I'm just saying that the majority of wine in the world is $7 bottles, $6 bottles.
Yeah.
Jug wine, box wine. It comes in a plastic bag and gets put in a box. This whole thing is troubling when it comes to Europe, getting rid of these things. It's extremely troubling because it puts a perception in the brain. And, all I hear is White Claw and hard seltzers. It changed everybody's drinking. The people who turned to White Claw were not drinking decent wine in the first place. No. I mean, this is a ridiculous argument.
Well, I like to do a little bit of both. I like to think there's room for a little high-low in my life. I say this as I just got the White Claw from Costco.
I'm not saying, all right, listen, I'm not saying I've never had a White Claw. I'm just saying that it's not like, you're not buying wine because you're buying White Claw, right? Or are you?
I think that's looking at like this younger generation. It's a lot cooler. It's a lot more fun to like slam back these things instead of sitting there and maybe, dissecting the nuances of my Bordeaux. And it's the way that maybe the regions are marketed as well. I've seen a huge shift in regions like Bordeaux, for example, trying to shift into, no, we're cool, we're approachable, we're not that stuffy, we're not that expensive, there's good value to be found here. So it might be partly to do with some people are just not drinking some of these regions anymore, or at the moment.
So Bordeaux, what was the other region? It was the Languedoc?
They mentioned the Languedoc as well, which I had mentioned to you, like, surprised me. Yes, this region makes a ton of wine, but I feel like people are buying the cheaper wine, though. If they're like, well, if I'm going to buy wine, I'm going to buy the $10 and under.
Yeah.
And Languedoc makes a lot of that. They make a lot of other really good wine as well, but they do make a lot of very affordable wine.
I think you're right. It's part of an ebb and flow. And probably I think it comes down to they just made too much damn wine. I really do. I think that is it's an issue for everybody. I mean, they have beer problems. The thing with wine, though, is it doesn't have the same shelf life. Whereas beer, right. I mean, not all beer. I know people will listen to this and say certain beers can, whatever. But for the most part, beer is you drink it when you get it product. And so with wine, even wine that's not at the very top level, it can still survive a lot longer than a lot of these other beverages can. So I don't know.
Maybe it's not a horrible thing that's happening either. Maybe it's okay that it's happening. Maybe it's, they're getting support from the government. These wineries are getting the 200 million euros, which is great to support them. And some of these vineyards are getting ripped up, which is very, very sad. But maybe it's a good thing that we're cutting back yields a little bit.
Well, if wine can get better, obviously. I will say on another note, not in our article list, but Costco just announced, and I kid you not, for $30,000, a 4-pack of Domaine de Romanée-Conti for $30,000 at Costco. You have to pre-order it. I'm not making this up. It is on the Costco website.
I'm assuming that's current release vintage, right?
It is whatever their current is. I think it's 2017 maybe, or whatever it is. I'm just saying, if you can go to Costco and get yourself a pack of Domaine de Romanée-Conti, which is one of the most expensive. It's not even wine anymore. Calling that wine is ridiculous. That's like somebody parking, a Ford Shelby in front of an original Ford Shelby in front of your house and being like, that's my car. It's not a car anymore. That is a piece of art, a collector's item. Domaine de Romanée-Conti is not wine. It just isn't. And anybody who treats it like wine probably should be taxed more, frankly.
I agree they should be taxed more. But I also think it should be treated like wine. Because the whole point of it is to drink it.
Oh, is that what it is?
The whole point of it is to drink it. It is.
Because that's clearly
like I had no idea what I was building my career on. But even Into the Bottle, he says, like, I want this wine to be enjoyed. I want this wine to be drunk.
And I believe he does.
People who buy that and let it sit there.
Aubert de Valin is a sweet man and a very, immensely, incredibly talented artist when it comes to wine. But, it's not like he's not, the head designer of Ferrari, too. He knows, of course he wants it to be enjoyed. What is our last story? And by far my favorite story that is peripherally. It's so interesting how this is about wine. So this is my favorite one.
Getting back to destruction. Well, Miller High Life beer cans destroyed after slogan disapproval misleads the public and harms winemaker. And what is the Miller High Life slogan, Jason?
Well, being from Ohio, I can tell you it is the champagne of beers. And
yes.
Also, this is a staple still for me.
Miller High Life?
Celebration. Yeah. Oh yeah, a celebration. And I can't count on my hands the amount of times I've been confused that I was drinking champagne when I had it. So many.
Oh, 100%.
Oftentimes I poured in one of those glasses that's got like a hair in it in a dive bar. And I think to myself, damn, this is good champagne. This is the whole intellectual property thing.
I see both sides, but
yeah. The champagne of beers slogan has been on that can since my father got his first job and probably way before. And so it's an interesting thing. Champagne is a colloquial comment. Like, it's like Kleenex at this point. Somebody says, give me a glass of champagne. And we all know we're obviously a wine podcast, but look, you just do it. It happens. And everybody listening to this, whether you admit it or not, has accidentally said, I'll have a glass of champagne and it's not, or pour me the champagne and it's not. It happens. It's an accident, But I'm also torn because I think a name is very important, and champagne is a very unique thing.
Absolutely.
It is not from any other place. I understand, and I'm not standing up for Miller High Life at all. I think it's ridiculous, though, to destroy cans of beer.
Also,
for
like,
this
they
reason.
destroyed. Well, they didn't do it themselves. They requested that a shipment that was arriving in Belgium. They requested that Belgium destroy. And again, this is 2,000 cans. Like, ouch! You really, you got them there with those 2,000 cans. Like, that's
I wonder if it's got to be something where like they have the copyright and the trademark on the word champagne, but they have to like act on it every like couple years to like keep it going or something like that, because there's no other reason than to get clickbait articles to even tell anybody you did this. So they clearly wanted somebody to know. And when it comes to all the names in wine, I think that they all should be protected. I really do believe this, because everything from Bordeaux to Burgundy to anything that has a name that they've earned through a lot of time and a lot of hard work, you don't want it ruined by some yokel, especially in America, who we do this all the time, just names their something whatever, Hamon Iberico, and it's just bacon out of a package. There's no point in having a real product if you can't protect it. But I still think this is ridiculous. So
it is a little ridiculous. I mean, it's too like heavyweight. Like champagne is not, I don't think Miller High Life is cutting into champagne sales at all. And I don't think there's really any overlap there. They're not saying this is champagne. They're saying,
it's the champagne of beers.
It's the champagne of beers. So a quote from the article: while international wine region names such as Napa Valley and Willamette Valley are increasingly protected in Europe, the U.S. government refuses to afford that same legal protection to certain European wine regions like Champagne. It misleads the public and harms winemakers all over the world. When a region name is misused, the credibility of the wine industry as a whole is diminished. It's disingenuous for some American producers to use the Champagne name when their product is not from the region. I think that needs to stop. As a segue, I think like something like saying like the champagne of beers, and California has been doing that for a while. California Chablis as well. Like we need to stop doing that. California Sherry. I went to a store and asked where their sherry was, and they showed me a California sherry, and I was like, I'm kind of shocked that that's still happening.
It's unbelievable, honestly. You're starting to turn me. I'm coming into your camp now.
I mean, the beer is a little much, but I understand that they're like, where do you draw the line?
If I had a bottle of shampoo in my bathroom and it said the Ferrari of shampoo, that would never, you couldn't do that. Yeah, but you couldn't do that. They would never allow that. You can't have like, this is I'm trying to think of like a designer jeans company of sandals. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, honestly, would never fly. And so they do
why
have
is
a
it
point.
Okay now? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it too has to do with how old the trademark is for the slogan for Champagne of Beers. And when champagne got protection in America is after that. So they're gonna go screw you. But also it's also a question not of misleading. Nobody thinks that's champagne, but the question is, does it dilute the word champagne? Does it take that down? So I ask you, should we take off the Champagne of Beers off of Miller High Life?
I know I'm so torn on this because it's so stupid, but like I understand where champagne's coming from.
I think they can take it off.
Do you? I don't.
You've turned me. You've turned me. Now you're on Mike's side and I'm on your side.
I know.
Kinda,
look what we did to each other. I think what it does is it opens up the question of wine regions in the U.S. and styles of wine that are calling themselves from other regions. Like that shit needs to stop. When it's a wine from California that's calling itself California Chablis, it's like, just knock it the fuck off. Say what the fuck it is. Have a little pride in what it is. We don't need to compare ourselves to Europe all the time or ever. Take pride in your sense of place. But I mean, it's Miller High Life. Champagne does not come in a keg. If it did, I would have found it by now. And I'd be doing a champagne keg stand.
Be a dangerous keg, I will say.
Very dangerous keg. It'd be awesome.
A very dangerous keg. I'm not sure that I will come to your party, but I will stand back. This is the way I will.
It'll rupture, and the streets will be running with champagne.
That sounds interesting. I'm in for that. Now that we've totally not settled any of that, wine in the streets, destroying wine, and destroying cans in the name of wine. Fascinating stuff. I don't know what to say. All right, should we talk about Cup of Salvation, because this film is coming at me like a hot missile right now.
It's coming at all of us like a hot missile.
It is so exciting. I guess I should just say, we recorded the score this morning. So the score was recorded in Budapest, and some of it will be done in Los Angeles. It is like no other score for a film. I know most of you listening don't think about the music in movies, but the music in this is a huge orchestra, and it is the most talented composer I know, and it is tremendous. And so I'm kind of on a high, but I'm also very tired because of going through that. We will be delivering the film to the theater about a week after it's completely done. And that probably leads into your next question of why this film took so long, right?
It's a question that a lot of people have asked on social media, on the platform. They've wanted to know, why is this taking so long? And I'd love to hear from you and you're so, I mean, when did you guys when did you start filming this? Take me
About
back.
4 or 5 years ago, I think, maybe more. I have to think deeply on that. For those of you who've stuck along on the pod this long, I'm gonna reveal a big
Bless
piece
you.
of news. We have an entire new film that's coming out at the beginning of next year. So it's called Life of Wine. I've never talked about it yet. It is
Oh my God.
just a stunning planet Earth documentary about wine and everything about it. And I just can't tell you anything else, but it is incredible. The reason I bring this up is that film was originally supposed to be Cup of Salvation to some extent. And we went to Armenia, and there was an archaeological dig that has changed everything. And then the country got attacked, and they went to war. And while we were there, we had to deal with some very dangerous situations, and that is a big part of the movie. And then some other opportunities came up. And it's no secret, since the New York Times article came out, that we filmed in Iran. And I don't know of an American film that has filmed in Iran since 1979, 78, really. There was an Islamic Revolution. Alcohol is extremely illegal. I'm giving no spoilers in the film because I can tell you what happens in the movie is incredibly harrowing and something that I just can't believe we captured. So a war happened and an opportunity to film in a forbidden country, at least if you're an American, and most Western countries, came up. And then we made a decision to film something in New York City that's due to a follow-up. And this film took a life of its own that I haven't really ever had a film do. I've had films take a long time for money reasons. I've had films take a long time because I don't know what the hell I'm doing as a filmmaker. I've had films take a long time for just the fact that they just take time because you got to follow somebody through the master sommelier exam and they can only take it once a year. So this one is the only time I've ever been filming something about history and a war breaks out and then a geopolitical thriller shows itself. And so it's a long answer to your question. And honestly, I wish to God the film had come out earlier, but now is the right time. Armenia was just attacked again. They are in a miserable situation. It's horrible. The world is not listening. Nobody cares. And it's atrocious. But what happens in this film, I pray that people will see it and it will draw attention to what's happening in Armenia, which I have to say, you think about Armenia and you go, I may have never heard of that country, or if I have, I don't really understand. I don't know where it is. Armenia, and especially through wine, and everybody listening to this podcast, this touches every single one of us. I can't, without giving spoilers to the film, I can't say much, but I can tell you that this is an incredibly connected place to the heart of every glass of wine you've ever had before. And so, anyways, I'm very proud of this film. The team that made it is very talented, and it's, in the end, we'll get some credit for that, but I will say that this movie is, holy shit. It's crazy.
It is. I saw a rough cut of it, and even in that, without the score in there and without being completely finished and polished, it's a beautiful story. And for sommelier friends who I talk to about it, it's so funny how Armenia is just this hole in our knowledge of wine, but it's pretty sure the birthplace of wine.
Yeah, it's definitely
like,
there's
it's
a strong argument. Yeah, there's a strong argument. I mean, we're talking about, I've said this on the pod before, but we're talking about a place that had no countries, back then,
right.
When wine was sort of discovered. Anyways, so theaters are about to happen and they're going to roll out. The way we're doing this release is that it's going to hopscotch. Start in LA, go to Chicago, probably stay longer in those places, go to Napa, go to New York, and then we do Seattle and we do the rest of these places and we go all over. And yes, Canada, there are many screenings in the works for you. I know I've heard you loud and clear. Canada has been do not forget about us. We really want to see this film. This is the most international movie we've ever made in a way that if you're an American, you can watch it and go, holy shit. But if you're a European or you are from any other part of the world, this is going to touch you in a way like no other movie that I have certainly directed will. I sound like I'm selling it and I'm really not. I'm just,
no.
This is the movie I've wanted to make for many, 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 many years and finally got a chance.
Yeah, it absolutely takes the Somm series to a whole other level.
Well, it's certainly had me drunk for 5 years. I just want people to know that it's out and we haven't started our marketing push. We're working through all of that, but it's important and we want you guys to, it sounds like a telethon here, but come and support it. Go see it. We made it for the big screen. So It'll be great to stream it someday and I will give news on that, but go and see it in the theater if you can, because it will be a statement. Documentaries in the theater if they can be successful, I'm telling you, anything can happen. So somfilms.com, get tickets. Claire, it is a pleasure to talk to you. I want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any great wine stories, anything you want us to cover, hit us up on the Som TV social media, especially Instagram, and let us know, because we want to talk about these kind of things. This is a lot of fun to do, just a riff podcast. We haven't done that in a while. So hope all of you are safe. Drink something nice for me and go to somfilms.com and get tickets, guys. All right, we'll talk soon.